Let's get right into today's explainer. We're looking at a classic piece of Chinese folklore, widely known as the Mystery of the Three Wailers. Picture this, a misty, ancient Chinese mountain village right at dawn. You've got this beautiful, cinematic, slow-moving fog rolling over thick bamboo forests. And against this incredible backdrop unfolds a story that just perfectly captures the hilarious and honestly sometimes disastrous consequences of human assumptions. It's a brilliant tale that shows us exactly what happens when we let our imaginations run completely unchecked.
To really wrap our heads around this phenomenon, we've got to start right at the climax of our story. So, imagine the scene. A respected local scholar, Master Ming, dressed in flowing traditional scholar robes, is just walking through the village square. But he stops dead in his tracks. Why? Because he finds three grown adults sitting together, just sobbing uncontrollably. The air is literally thick with grief. So he demands to know, why are you all crying without reason? I mean, it's the perfect question, right? How on earth did these three people end up in a puddle of collective misery?
Chapter 1: The Mysterious Letter.
To see how this totally bizarre scene unfolded, let's rewind and look at the actual catalyst of the story, which is just a simple, unopened piece of parchment. Our story starts with the elderly Mrs. Chang. She's a weathered elder in traditional modest robes, and she's just received a letter from her distant son all the way in Beijing. Her face is just filled with anxious anticipation. But, well, there's a pretty significant problem here. Mrs. Chang can't read. So she's holding this unread letter, and the suspense is agonizing. That piece of paper represents a total, terrifying unknown.
So what's she gonna do? She spots the mighty warrior Wen walking by. He's this really imposing figure in ornate, traditional lacquered armor. She hands the letter to him, obviously hoping for some good news. Warrior Wen unfurls the scroll, but instead of reading it out loud, his stoic expression just completely shatters. Tears well up in his eyes. He clutches his chest, drops to the ground, and begins to wail uncontrollably in absolute devastating grief.
Chapter 2: The Contagion of Tears.
Watch how fast this builds. It's like a domino effect. At minute 1, Warrior Wen breaks down weeping over the open letter. By minute 2, Mrs. Chang, seeing this fierce, mighty warrior absolutely destroyed by whatever is on that paper, instantly assumes the worst. She figures a terrible tragedy has befallen her son in Beijing. Overcome with pure contextual panic, she falls to her knees and joins in the weeping. Then, at minute 5, a traveling merchant named Peddler Peng arrives. He's pulling a wooden cart filled with silk and porcelain. He sees the warrior and the elder sobbing, and overwhelmed by the raw emotion of the scene, he assumes a massive tragedy has cursed the land. So, what does he do? He sits on his cart and starts weeping bitterly right alongside them.
What is truly fascinating here, and kind of scary, honestly, is what is not happening. Nobody asks a single question. Not a single word is exchanged. The grief spreads based purely on visual context. The absolutely crucial point here is the sheer absurdity of the situation. Empathy and panic are spreading like a virus, like wildfire, without a single word of verbal confirmation. It's literally a symphony of tears built entirely on silence and assumption.
Chapter 3: Unmasking the Motivations.
So the cinematic tension of this bizarre group crying session finally peaks when an outsider steps in to break the spell. And this is where the elite local scholar, Master Ming, steps into the frame. Seeing this chorus of tears, he initially assumes some profound cosmic catastrophe must have happened. But, being a scholar, he needs actual facts. He stops the madness and demands an explanation. "Stop the tears! What is the tragic news?" he shouts. This direct, simple question shatters the shared delusion and sets the stage for an absolutely spectacular twist.
Let's break down the core comedy of this folktale because it is brilliant. Master Ming asks each of them why they're crying. Warrior Wen, looking super confused, admits he actually has no idea what the letter says. Yep, he's a great mighty warrior, but he is completely illiterate. He wept because he felt deeply ashamed that he couldn't read the letter, and he just cried loudly to cover up his embarrassment. Hearing this, Mrs. Chang realizes her son might actually be fine. She literally only cried because she saw the warrior crying. And then we get to Peddler Peng, the merchant, whose reason is definitely the most absurd of the whole bunch.
100. That is the exact number of clay pots that Peddler Peng is crying over. You see, a whole year ago, actually a full 12 months ago, his donkey was startled and broke 100 of his precious clay pots. At the time, he was so busy trying to recover his losses that he never really had time to properly mourn. So when he saw the warrior and the old woman crying so passionately, the memory of his broken pots came rushing back, and he just decided to use the opportunity to finally let out his delayed grief. He was weeping for pots that broke a year ago.
Chapter 4:
The grand reveal.
Okay, so we have a warrior crying out of embarrassment, a mother crying out of assumed panic, and a merchant crying over antique pottery. But what about the actual letter? The whole story resolves when the literate Master Ming finally takes the parchment from the weeping warrior and reads it out loud. The group's assumed calamity was death and destruction, but the actual truth? The letter brings nothing but joy. Mrs. Chang's son in Beijing is perfectly healthy, he's highly successful, he's sending money home, and, best of all, he's coming to visit his mom next month. There is absolutely zero tragedy here.
As soon as Master Ming finishes reading, the atmosphere shifts instantly. All that melodramatic sobbing just evaporates. The characters look at each other, and their tear-stained faces turn into vibrant, booming laughter. They realize the sheer ridiculous absurdity of their own shared foolishness. A profound wave of relief washes over the village as the sun sets warmly over the mountains. The whole tragedy was entirely in their heads.
Chapter 5. The Danger of Assumptions. Now, this is a wonderfully charming story, for sure. But why does this ancient piece of Chinese folklore actually matter to us today? What can we learn from the three Wailers? Well, it brilliantly illustrates a very real psychological concept called emotional contagion. This is the phenomenon where individuals unconsciously synchronize their own emotions and behaviors with those of the people around them. Think about it. Warrior Wen's unexpressed internal shame triggered a massive chain reaction of completely unrelated anxieties in Mrs. Chang and Peddler Peng. They caught his emotion like a cold without ever once checking to see if they were actually operating with the same facts.
So there are three crucial takeaways for us here. First, always verify information before reacting. Don't assume the contents of an unread letter just because someone else looks upset. Second, recognize your own projected anxieties. Ask yourself, are you reacting to the actual facts in front of you, or are you just crying over your own 100 broken clay pots from last year? And finally, be aware of the herd mentality. Just because 3 people in the village square are wailing doesn't mean the sky is actually falling.
I want to end our explainer today with this powerful question for you to chew on. When was the last time you followed the crowd without reading the letter first? In our modern hyper-connected world full of instant emotional reactions and viral panic, it is just so incredibly easy to become one of the Wailers. So take a breath, step back, and make absolutely sure you know what the letter actually says before you shed a single tear.